Okay, we've reconvened after a great presentation for the God Boys Soccer Champions. We're very proud of them and excited for the continuation of success at that program. Next, we'll be on to Spotlight on Teaching and Learning, which is the state assessment scores.
Good evening, everybody. So today I'm going to bring you our state assessment scores. This is going to be mostly an overview of results. So you're going to get the big picture, and then we'll be working with the results and digging down a little bit further. Just starting off on the first slide, just a reminder of what scores we're looking at. So this was all done last year, and we have the RICAST test, which is given to grades 3 through 8. We have the SAT, which 11th and 12th graders take. We also have the dynamic learning maps, which are assessments administered to students with significant cognitive disabilities. And then we have the access testing for students who are English language learners. So those are the scores we'll be looking at tonight. Before we look at the scores, the next slide has just some things to think about, because obviously these are some results during a very difficult time in teaching and learning, and it's important for you to keep that in mind. Obviously, COVID-19 had a strong impact on education, but last year during the administration of this, we had our K through 3 schools in full-time, and we had 4 or 5 in full-time, and then we also had 6 through 12 alternating days. If you can remember, back last year, we were doing sort of a hybrid model for 6 through 12. The year prior to that was the COVID year, where we pretty much shut down in March and did distance learning. So these test scores, there were none in 2020, and in 2021, as we were still experiencing the COVID effect in many of our schools, this is when we were assessed. Just to keep in mind that, we had a lot of effort to make sure kids were in school. But just to be honest, there was reduced instructional time. It's just part of what happened through COVID for many of our students. So that's something to keep in mind. And also, there were social emotional supports and academic supports that didn't always happen in person because kids were at home. We had over 400 kids that never came in. So that's important to also keep in mind. Rhode Island was a state that administered its full assessments last year. And I think this is an important slide for you to kind of just get an idea of the last normal school year for a lot of our students. So if you have a 5th grader right now, their last normal school year was grade 2. And if you have a 10th grader, their last normal school year was grade 7. And looking at the kindergarten 1st and 2nd graders, they have never had a normal school year. So when we think about all of this data, these are just some important pieces to keep in mind. The next slide has our participation rates on it. Rhode Island did have a big dip in participation rates. They went down 9–10% on most assessments. Middletown did not have a huge dip. We were down about 3% in the RICAST and a little between 1% and 2% in the SAT. So we can't say that we had a ton less students taking the test. We were very creative on how we administered the test, so we made sure that when kids were in school, they were taking the assessment. So on the days that they were in, they were taking the assessment. So we do feel like we got most of our kids through, and our participation rates were actually good. Next slide. So coming up, you're going to have some RICAST data. So again, this is grades 3 through 8 in English language arts and mathematics. So the first slide is going to compare some years. So we have 2018, 2009, 2018 is in the blue, 2019 is in the red. As you can see, 2020, we skipped due to COVID. Then the 2021 year is in green, and the state scores are in orange. And as you can see, there is a decline in our scores. We are concerned with where we currently sit, but it does give us a baseline for where we are. And so we have to look at it as information. We are down 5% in ELA. We have 34.4% of our students proficient in ELA. And in math, we're down 10%, 22.2% proficient in math. So declines, yes, more of a dip in math than ELA. But again, take a look at the state in comparison to where we are. We are a little above the state. Just it was sort of overall on the state level, a decline in scores. I want to go to the next slide. I think it also gives you some very important information. So this is where our kids sit. As you can see, the green is exceeding expectations, the yellow is meeting, the red is partially meeting, and the blue is not meeting at all. So if you think about this, the biggest area up there is that red group. We want to really push those students to the next level. We want to make sure all the students increase, but we have a large group in that partially meeting section. So when we say they're below grade level, yes, but a lot of them are in that section right before the meeting. So we're hoping that by targeting that red and blue group and making sure that we have accommodations, we can be sure to improve their performance levels. We can go to the next slide. This is an important slide just to kind of see how each of our schools did. If you look at a Quidnick school in ELA, you're going to notice that they had 60% achieve, and that was pretty much a maintenance from the year before, from 2 years before. So they were able to maintain their ELA scores. And a big celebration comes in their math scores. Quidnick's actually went up from 36% to 45%. So a little celebration there. And if we're talking celebrations, let's also talk about Forest, who went up a little bit in their ELA. And this is not the trend in the state. The trend was down. So we had Forest that went up in that ELA. I mean, the big area of dipping, whether it be Forest or Gaudet or Gaudet Learning or Gaudet Middle, is in that math area. Looking at the decline in math was more substantial than ELA. Keep in mind that last year, Gaudet Learning was only grade 4, and Gaudet Middle was grade 5 through 8, and we will have that switched in the future years. So it's going to make it a little difficult in the next couple of years to sort of compare those, but we'll do our best to tease out those results. The next assessment we will go over is the SAT, and this is 11th and 12th graders. Mr. Soares does an exceptional job and coordinating this test, and I will say last year was probably the most difficult coordination of all because it was during COVID, and we had half the kids at a time, and so kind of had to figure out scheduling-wise, and worked with Dr. Heath, and they were very thoughtful about how to get kids through this testing. So you will see that there were dips in the SAT scores, but not significant dips. We went from 60.8 to 56.9 in ELA, and we went from 38.9 to 35.3% in math. So while it dipped, not as significant. So little things to celebrate. You definitely have to find those. The next slide has sort of the way we looked at RICAST. So again, it's a comparison from year to year. So you look at 2018, 19, the COVID year, 2021, and then you do look at the state. And as you can see, the high school does have room above the state. They are, in a good place in relation to the state scores, but it's not where we want to be. If you look at the overall scores for the high school, 55.7 are prepared for college literacy, which is a better score than we're looking at from grades 3 through 8. So when we think about ELA scores, we're in the 34% for the ELA and RICAST, whereas we're at 55.7 in the SAT. But that math is also showing a lower score, very similar to the RICAST scores. We're lower here, we're down a little bit. So the high school, overall down about 3%, but in math being that lower score, but above the state, which is something to celebrate. And again, this gives us a baseline for where we are and where we need to go. It's information that we can use to better prepare our kids. If you look at the next slide, it kind of has that performance level again. So you look at math, look at the large number in the red. So again, it's that group that could be moved up to that meeting and exceeding those yellow and greens. And then also the blue area in both of these has a group of kids that's pretty large. So we need to take a look at, what kids are not meeting at all in the ELA and math. But little celebration, we have more exceeding in ELA than we have on any other assessments. So that ELA for the high school definitely has some celebrations. This was prepared by Sarah Krager, our Director of Special Education. Just sort of gives you an idea of the students that participated in the DLM, which is the Dynamic Learning Maps. It's an alternate assessment for students. And sort of the percentage of students who participated and then where they landed. So which ones were emerging, approaching, at target, or advanced in comparison to the state. Sarah had completed these for me, and she said they do not recommend comparing them year to year. They just sort of want you to see where the kids are at and in relation to the state levels as well. So these were the ELA scores, and very concerning is the 40% in that emerging place and 50% for the state, but the 40% for the ELA for us was a place that we looked at. And then the math scores are given in the same way as well. You can see we have 46.7 in that emerging space. We want to see kids approaching target, at target, or advanced. So we know which kids fell in each area, so we can actually target, those students and work with them on their DLM assessments for the future. I did add in the next slide, and it's probably separate in your packet. Oh wait, these are the science results. They do take science as well. As you can see, they did better in science. We have 54% at that approaching target. So they did better in science than they did in the ELA and the math. In the next slide, I did add some access results, and they're probably separate in your packet. The reason I added them in was because they came out this week, so they should be clipped separately. So this is for our students who are English language learners, and if you think about last year, we had 135 students who were English language learners. This year, we're well over 200. So we're looking at last year's data. Currently, we have been assessing them again, and they will have the access test in January. So you're getting some of this information in a delayed fashion. Some of these students might have moved up. Some of them might have moved out of district. We have, like I said, about 75 students that have moved in. But it's a moment in time. It's information for us to look at. It's where our students are falling for English language learners. And obviously you want them working towards that 6, which is the reaching. But our ELL students are broken down into that 1 through 6, which entering, emerging, developing, expanding, bridging, and reaching. And it's all relation to their English proficiency. So that's what it measures. Again, this group of students is growing immensely in Middletown. You saw the soccer team up in front of us, and a lot of them weren't speaking English. So, they come from all over. It's wonderful. We love to have them as part of our district and part of our community. They add wonderful culture and friendships and community with our students. But we need to help them as well acquire the language. And I think that's a new piece of what we need to build in Middletown, because our program is just growing so quickly.
Michelle, I'm sorry. You said-
Yes.
So this was last year, we had 135 students. You said we have well over 200 now?
Well over 200.
Wow,
Yeah.
Yes,
that's a really big number.
yes. So it's very
So-
important to realize that we have kids in that 135 who have left, new ones who have come in. You start all again. Sometimes those students are here for a year, sometimes they're here longer.
So when you talk about that many students, we obviously need the teacher support to provide the ELL
Yes.
structure and what's the word I'm looking for, translation and things of that nature. So that requires more staffing.
Yeah,
If our
they're
numbers
actually,
go up like that, we
the-
have to have more teachers.
there's actually laws around compliance
Right.
for servicing students with English language. And right now, we're below that. We need to hire. So we're writing it into our SO3 plan because we need more ELL teachers.
So we're over about 100 students over from last year.
I would say we're approaching over 100 students over from last year, yes. And we still currently have 3 ELL teachers. One at the elementary level between 2 schools, one at the middle level, 4 through 8, and then one at the high. But we have been posting and interviewing for that position to add on. I know that, for example, a Quinnick school alone has 58 English language learners in one building. So it's a lot. And we love working with those students, but they do need specialized instruction. They do need, we need to be investing in their understanding of English, and that way they can show us what they know in ELA and math.
Thank you.
Question?
My question is, they don't all start in the kindergarten level. They come
No.
in at the middle and high school, which, that's so hard to teach them how to read and do their math and write in one
Yes.
language and then in another one.
I will say that when they come in kindergarten and first grade, acquiring language is often easier. They're immersed in the language in those young classes, and language acquisition is important for any student in those grades. So I think there's a lot of successful, that you see success by January. They just sort of are like sponges. But even in the upper grades, you see great improvement in their English acquisition over time. It just is that you have to have those supports in place for them. You saw like those levels 1 through 6. When we're servicing students, we need to service so much time for the 1s and the 2s and the 3s, and we need more staff to do that. We're not addressing the current population with our staffing.
And what about, this goes back to the green, where they're meeting, and the yellow, where they're exceeding. What are we doing for those students also?
Oh, absolutely. So that's one of our 4 questions. We want to know what every student needs. So proficiency is great. If the student is getting that exceeding mark, for us, it's not just about that they become proficient, it's that they grow. So if a student is exceeding the mark in math, we need to think about in a year's time, where do they need to go? What's the growth that they need to make? So the assessments I'm showing you mainly recognize proficiency. We also measure growth. And I think that's what we need to focus on when kids are behind. Are kids growing every year where they need to be growing? If the answer to that question is no, then we're not doing our job. So to do our jobs, we need to make sure they're growing, whether they're high or low or average students, it doesn't matter. Everyone needs to be showing growth. And again, these assessments I'm showing you
Yeah,
are
yeah.
proficiency.
Yeah.
So, sort of this page is really important. I believe strongly in this first bullet, as I know our administrators do, and I want to just, I am passionate about what it says, but students who do not read at grade level in grade 3, by grade 3, are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school than those that do. Grade 3 is a critical year for attaining literacy, and we are not cutting that in our schools right now. We need to focus on those lower grades, K through 3, getting them to meet literacy benchmarks, because if they don't, we're setting them up, excuse me, we're setting them up for a lot of difficulties beyond. And I will tell you, ways to do that are adopting high-quality materials, putting tier instruction in place, having intervention staff. All of those pieces, it's not rocket science. We need to put our dollars there in order to see significant improvements in literacy and math. And grade 3 is that key. Grade 3 is that key. Also, we know that students who are competent readers do well in other subjects. So the competency of literacy is just where we need to be focused. We have had a decline. We had the 5% decline in ELA, and we had a 10% decline in math. Both of those areas require us to intervene. We have to intervene. We have to intervene instructionally.
Is that part of the basic educational plan, you know, the BEP? How does that connect? Because I know that the General Assembly is trying to connect the BEP to what they're going to be doing now.
Who's going to be doing what
The General Assembly.
Okay, so I know that a lot of what the legislation is telling us, and I will get to that slide in a bit, about what the guidance is to improve scores, improve beyond scores. Like for me, it's way beyond. It's having kids who have the ability to read and write successfully, do math successfully, be college and career ready. So to do that, there are things that you need to commit to as a district. And so carving those out include high quality curriculum materials, staffing for interventions, all of the things that, the language that we've been talking in our ESSER planning. It gets me very excited, but also concerned that the budget, you know, is where it is, and that, you know, these dollars for ESSER, we're gonna use them, and then how do you continue to sustain those supports as we go on? We talk a lot about that in our meetings, like, if we add 3 interventionists, how long can we have them for? Because a one and done is not what we're looking for. We're looking for sustainable over time. And I have a few more slides that'll help us understand that. But just looking at the snapshot from Middletown doesn't make us feel great. But it's where we are, and it's where we need to build from. But if we do the same thing every year, we're not going to get different results. I mean, we had COVID, and that did have an effect, but nobody's using that as an excuse. We are saying, like, this is where our kids are, and this is where we need to take them. And I think things like Beyond the Bell and our summer enrichment program, our summer intervention program, those are ways that we can maximize not just the school day, but beyond the school day. And I'll update you later on how that's going. We can go to the next slide. So some key takeaways, and this might be a few things that we already talked about, but overall our student performance has declined in both subjects, and ELA, wasn't as bad as the mathematics, but the results are a new baseline for us. We need to move our district forward, and again, we need to make some decisions that will truly impact the student progress and their growth. We have to make decisions that will affect that. And if we don't, we're going to struggle. And that's what we talk about with our ESSER dollars. It is important to recognize celebrations. I mean, the fact that a Quinnic went up, and not even a small jump, but a significant jump in math, is something to really celebrate. And Forest also had that went up in ELA. I will tell you, we pushed hard to have those kids in school every day. As you can remember, there were a lot of schools, even at the younger grades, whose kids did not come in every day, and in Middletown, we were in every day. So lots to celebrate there. At the school level, we'll be looking more at subgroups, and we'll be looking at item analysis. At our last staff meeting with the principals, we talked about we can actually access the items that the kids didn't do well on and figure out where the deficits were. And one of the things that our principals pointed out is there were deficits in writing. So while our reading score overall looks low, some of our reading scores were actually okay, but our writing scores pulled them down. Because we look at it as ELA, which is English Language Arts, which encompasses both the reading and the writing. So there is a passion and a commitment to work closely on these goals and dig into this data and figure out how we can help kids make that growth. I think it's all about finding the supports, the funding, and how to sustain that work over the next few years, because there's work to do. There's work to do. Next slide is how we're moving forward. Again, some of the things we've already been talking about, but really digging into this data, we can learn a lot from it. It can tell us things that we need to work on. And I can't stress enough how interventions are really important. Extending learning opportunities. So Beyond the Bell obviously is something that we've been really pushing and working on. We started it this week in our schools. We also have some other partnerships that we've been working closely on. I've been working with the Boys and Girls Club, and I'm happy to say that they have been wonderful in the partnership we have with them in servicing our homeless families, helping with our ELL students. A lot of our kids will go to the Boys and Girls Club for homework support, a dinner, a warm dinner, and also they'll be transported home. So we have some nice partnerships. Also addressing the social emotional issues of our students, because we can't forget that, as well as the academic concerns. You hear me talk about things all the time that are probably repeated in that last bottom box, which, what are we working on? I mean, the high quality curriculum materials are huge right now. So as you know, K-5 is implementing them. 6 through 12 are choosing them for implementation next year. Also next year, we look at a K-12 math implementation, all brand new materials. And then it's science. We have a 5-year plan to execute that. And thanks to literacy grants, thanks to ESSER funding, those materials will be covered as part of our plan. And that's important for now, but then there's a cost every year that we need to think about. So just some more things for you to think about. Also, we talk about high quality curriculum as tier 1, and then we have tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. We need more resources for that, so we're also building that into ESSER 3 funding. We want a universal screening tool. We want better access to student data. So we want teachers to be able to find their student data with an easy click, and we want them to be able to build an intervention plan without a lot of paperwork. So we've been looking at platforms. I've been working with our director of technology, and we've been looking at platforms that streamline this work for teachers. So those are some of the things that will help us reach kids. It's really important to have those pieces in place. And so we've been investigating how we can do that better. The other piece we've talked about before is how do we improve student transitions? So we have that pre-K group coming to kindergarten. How do we improve that transition, that early childhood transition? How do we improve our 8th to 9th grade transition? Or even our 5th to 6th within the same building? There's a lot of studies around those transitional times in students' lives and how you support them. And we did some of that work this year with our early childhood groups. So you'll be hearing a lot about that. Digital supports are important. There's a lot of things we can do with technology that supports some of this work and streamlines the work. And then the last bullet, we've talked about it a lot, but you know that K through 5 teachers all have to go through the rigorous training of the right to read. And that's happening. We've started with cohort 1 and cohort 2. Every teacher's going through that. And again, we've written grants for that, so because it's very costly. It's about $800 a teacher to send them through that course. So that's a new expense for us that we haven't had. It's a one-time expense, but it's an expense. So we've been writing grants for those dollars, whether it be in our CRP or our literacy grant. We kind of pull it from all different places. I know this is a lot, but hopefully it's tying in for you. On the last slide, these are the ideas that the Rhode Island LEAP Task Force believes are the priorities to accelerate learning and move our system forward. So I just wanted to have you recognize those again, even though they're all, I don't know why they're all numbered number 1, but there are 5 of them, and one of them is to energize your school community with attention to students who are chronically absent or unengaged. So one of our big goals, we had an administrative retreat this summer. We talked about student and family engagement and how important that was, especially coming off of COVID. And we know that we need to have kids in school and we need to have them engaged in order to do well. Second one was to ensure they have access to high quality curriculum and personalized supports, not just in school, but before and after school and in the summer. This is a commitment we need to make. We have generally funded most of our after school through grants, such as the MCOSY, the Van Buren grant, the McKinney-Vento grant. We kind of take from all different places. This year we've sort of blown up beyond the bell. It's bigger than it's ever been. We're servicing more kids than we've ever serviced. But we need to figure out how to sustain that and how to pay for that. We have transportation costs, we have student material costs, and we have teacher costs because it's beyond the school day. So there's a lot to think about in order to fund these initiatives. Again, we're talking about ESSER dollars, but ESSER dollars are, you know, the third ESSER is, they're talking to us about it being, you know, one time. And so we need to think about putting things in there that we need to figure out how do you sustain them. Again, you'll see that screen all students is important. They're saying that, and we definitely have those screeners in place, and we'll be adding to our screeners and assessments. And then supporting student transitions, which you saw in the plan, and closing the digital divide. So students having access to computers, to technology, to the internet at their fingertips. We are working very hard. We have a one-to-one plan, but we also have to make sure that one-to-one is maintained and supported over time. So the fact that they all have a device, you still need a plan for how are you going to switch out those devices and how are you going to support those devices as we go forward. So I know this is a lot, but it kind of goes with everything we've been talking about. There was no big surprise on the scores, but we know we have a lot of work to do. And there's nobody that doesn't know that. But I will just take a moment to you know, congratulate those areas that did go up in a very difficult time, and also the ones that kind of stayed steady, and just looking forward to really putting some pieces in place that can help our students not just reach proficiency, but grow over time. I mean, I think that's the key. We need to have that growth.
And this is where I see where our budget has to be developed around this type of information.
I don't think there's anything more important, so I feel like this is the key. This is the key.
I'm finding at the statewide level that the General Assembly ride, we're all adding more. So it's not just the academics, but now we're teaching children with a second language, and that's a whole nother area. You know, so I just feel like everyone's putting, the schools will take care of that. And I see that at the General Assembly. Well, the schools can do this, the schools can, you know, and I'm trying to explain that there's not enough time throughout the day.
Well, I mean, I think that's one of the reasons we're extending the school day. And we were thrilled that our teachers work really hard during the school day, but a large percentage of our teachers are staying after, large percentage. We have never had this many teachers commit to staying after school and working with students. So we can thank our teachers because they have the passion that even as more comes on top, they keep working harder. So they have been working harder, but I think we need more supports for our kids. So when you talk about ELL students, I mean, we have 3 ELL trained teachers. They're certified to work with ELL students. That's not enough for 200 kids. That's not enough. So those are the kinds of supports that we need to look at and say we need to invest in. But it's very hard when you have a budget that is so tight and we're cutting and not adding.
Because I think people just think, well, when I went to school, you know, everyone started in kindergarten and your classmates were there. This doesn't happen. So you need those extra supports when someone comes from another country and they're old enough to be in the middle school and all this. Because I know that I've been trying to get a senior plus, like a grade 13, talking about it within the state for the possibility. I mean, times have changed.
They have. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Okay. Next is information. Oh, sorry.
In your packet for information is just the updated Military Interstate Compact annual report. I attended virtually the annual business meeting. As past chair, I go off that executive board, but it just shows you the organization itself and the things that the organization does for our military students across the nation. That's the only thing in information.
We have some correspondence. We have a letter from Leslie Florio, Assistant Executive Director, UniServe NEARI, requesting to commence bargaining on a successor agreement with NEAM. Can I have a motion?
I make a motion that the school committee receive the communication.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We have a letter from Leslie Florio, Assistant Executive Director, UniServe NEARI, requesting to commence bargaining on a successor agreement with Middletown Paraprofessional Association, NEARI, and NEA. Can I have a motion to receive the communication?
I make a motion that the school committee receive the communication.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next is the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to receive?
I make a motion that the school committee approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Next, we have new business, the PSAT update. Oh, yes, sorry.
So last meeting, if you recall, we had a parent talk to us about access to the PSAT and the National Merit PSAT for our students at Middletown High School. Our associate principal, Ms. DeSoers, did some research on that. I put that summary in your packet, but he will talk to you a little bit more about it. But Dennis, you can move that up. I won't ask Dr. Heath because, you know.
You might pull another bicep. But
A little bit more, Dennis, if you can move it up. because we just need to get the visual. We want to see your face. Okay, perfect.
All right, good evening. So last week, I was sitting listening to Mr. Weiss, and I did relay this information to him that I'm going to share with you this evening. The question was asked if a school wasn't to offer the PSAT and MSQT, would a student be able to participate in the Saturday session? So there was some kind of confusion on that. I want to do some research on that, to be honest with you, because we do have the SAT now being offered during the weekend on Saturdays at Middletown High School. We have 4 dates, one just passed. We have one that's going to come up for a Saturday in December. So we're able to re-implement that this year. But I didn't see PSAT and MSQT on that list, so I reached out to a couple of contacts I have over at the College Board. And the findings were that if a student who is attending Middletown High School, for example, and Middletown High School is not offering the PSAT and MSQT for some reason, would be able to participate in the PSAT and MSQT at a different high school, but the way to do it is a little bit strenuous. So basically what would have to happen would be a parent or the student have to reach out or find a school that's doing it, reach out to the coordinator, and the coordinator would either approve it or disapprove it. If the coordinator would disapprove it, then the student would have to find a different school. If the coordinator would approve it, then they would go through the process, sign the student up, student would reimburse the school for the test, and the student would sign up and take the test. So this does happen with the AP exams. I'm going to be very, very honest with you. We have, for example, this year a student who goes to Rocky Hill and lives in another town in Rhode Island, and who reached out to me about a week ago and asked if they could take the 2 AP tests with us because we offer the course, and her school didn't. I'm not going to deny a student, so I accepted it. I worked with the parent. I signed the student up. The student was signed up a little differently by myself, so that way it wouldn't hinder our scores or help our scores, so the student's going to be labeled as exam only. What that means is a student just comes to Middletown High School, takes the exam, and leave. I won't see that data. I won't see how that student performs. All I'm doing is administering the test and collecting the funds from the student to pay for that test. So it's the same situation as an AP test where if a student did want to take the PSAT and MSQT at an alternative location, the student have to reach out to the coordinator. Now, it would be up to the coordinator to say yes or no. The coordinator can say no, and that's that, for various reasons. But there is that possibility. Unfortunately, they don't advertise that on the College Board site, mainly because they want the schools to have their own sites, or their own administration sessions. I have to talk to Dr. Heath about this for next year. If budgeted for, it'd be easier for us to, if the school would fund it, it'd be easier for us to have a session. The $17 a test, unused tests cost us $4. If we don't have the funding for it, then we would have to start advertising for it in May and June to try to get prospective interest, try to get interested students on a list, collect funds from them throughout the summer, and order in August or whenever the deadline that they put forward. Last year we offered it, but that's because the College Board did offer a session in January last minute that we were able to take advantage of. This year they're not. So that was another loophole. So the College Board doesn't really do us many favors because the deadline's over the summer. There is a slight unintended consequence if we don't fund the PST and MSQT and we have to solicit students to let us know if they're interested or not. A new student who moves in, say August 31st, won't have the opportunity because the deadline's already passed. So there's those type of unintended consequences that could happen if that does occur. We used to do the PSAT and MSQT for all students. We stopped it because many of the students were being forced to take a test that they didn't want to take, and it was to a point where we were, lack of a better term, dragging students into the room, and our test scores actually went down from the PST and MSQT from the previous spring. And it really shouldn't be like that with us because there were students that literally were just bubbling in answers that really didn't want to be there. But it's a conversation that's worth having, perhaps with Dr. Heath, myself, and Ms. Krager and Ms. Fonska about whether we want to do that or not. I would support it, but maybe we can do it in a way where we offer it to students who are interested in taking it, not force every junior to take it. So there are students that want to enter the work world after high school, and they've made that decision, whether if mom and dad own a business, they could take it over or whatever, might not want to participate in that. So it all depends, but again, an unused test is $4, a used test is $17. So if we order 150 tests and we use 75, then we're going to be paying $4 for a 75 unused test and $17 for a 75 used test. So there is a catch-22 in it. Is it a big bill? Not really, but every penny counts. So I just want to give you that presentation. That's based on the research I've done, so. Okay?
Thank you, Dennis. And you did get back to Mr. Weiss, right? Yeah.
I did. I had a conversation with him on the phone.
Thank you.
I have a question, Teresa. At the high school level, do you see less and less of students going on to colleges? Because they're having a hard time recruiting students because they're taking like a gap year or they're taking classes.
I'm not sure if we have those numbers, Jeff, as far, I think for Middletown High School, it's pretty steady.
Yeah, based on school profile, there was a slight dip this past year, but that would be expected, I think, with COVID and some of the challenges we've
Okay.
had. But not a significant dip, probably talking 82 or 3 percentage points.
Right. Well, you know, to go back to the testing, maybe they're saying, well, I'm going to take a gap year, or I'm going to work first and then decide what I want to do.
There are colleges and universities now that are moving away from using the SAT as a mechanism for the application.
Right.
So they just this year, they eliminated the essay portion of the SAT. Now, the essay portion doesn't show up on on the data that Ms. Fonseca showed because it's not used for school accountability. So we don't really talk about the essay portion in this type of forum. But the essay was eliminated this past year. So it's been effective now. The weekend session that just happened, just occurred earlier this month. There was no essay session, but the College Board did throw a little monkey wrench at us. They added a 5th pilot section that students had to take, which was an extra math with calculator. So I have to investigate to see if that's going to be on our state test, but the essay is gone.
What percentage take the SAT?
So every student has to take the SAT in April because that's what the state's using for the state testing accountability
That's
measure.
what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Because then, since they all are taking it,
Yep.
it seems like, even though the scores might be low, having taken the PSAT is helpful.
Yeah, so all sophomores will take the PSAT 10 in April,
Yep.
and all juniors will take the SAT in April. So, and that's per the state. That's what the state's using for their state test. So Mass uses MCAS. Rhode Island uses the PSAT, SAT at the high school level.
Dennis, I maybe misunderstood. Are you talking, was it $70 a test? 17.
$17 for a PSAT and a MSQT. But just to clarify, the test that's offered in April is paid for by the state because that's what the state uses for an accountability measure. So the April PSAT and the April SAT sessions are covered by the state. The weekend sessions are covered by the student, but we had students a couple of weeks ago from the Met, we had one from North Kingstown, a couple from St. George's, a few from Middletown High School, so. Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Dennis.
Business is the enrollment update.
Okay, I just have a few slides for you to take a look at. I'd like to do enrollment update for you monthly. First slide is basically an overall. It shows you the student population as of today for each school. Aquidneck School has approximately 308 students, Forest Avenue 303, a combination of Gaudet Learning Academy and Gaudet Middle School, we're at 779, and Middletown High School at 628. We have a total of 2010 students. It compares to last year. At this time, we had 1,964, so It's about 46 or so more students. And then the column that says 470, those are the number of new registrations we have processed since, for this school year. So quite a few. The next page is broken down by class and class size. We can just go through these, Kim. So you have that data. So you look at class sizes. We need to make a few adjustments on the number of classes here. I'll get that corrected data to you. And then the last page is the enrollment data, looking at our L students. 200, as Michelle said, and our homeless data, we're up to 7.7%. Our military data, this is an old count, this is just our A. We did our military survey, and we'll have those numbers by the end of December, and our homeschooling count. So I'd like to just keep you updated each month on those numbers. Thank you. Next is Building Committee. I want to thank our town council and our building committee and members of our school committee for doing all the tours on Saturday. I think it was nice to be in the schools with our town council, and they saw the highs and lows of our buildings. Stepping back from it, because I'm in the schools often, but I recognize the schools are old and they're tired when we walk through the buildings. Our principals did a fabulous job telling the story about their schools, so I appreciate the principals. Thank you for being there. Our next meeting is December 1st with our building committee. We will be looking at schematics. We had the schematics for you at the tour, so they saw the different additions. Our architects are going back to the board and doing different renderings as well. We're going to meet with our building principals because we got their input, and the architects took what they suggested and put them in, we'll be putting them in new renditions, and then we really want to roll this out to our teachers with a date really to come to the council the end of January with a plan. In terms of the visioning committee, we have close to 400 responses from our survey. We want to re-engage our visioning committee and give them the update of the building survey and also the schematics. So that's where we are with both the visioning and the building committee.
Next, we have action items. Can I get a motion on the job description for benefit clerk, second reading?
I move that the school committee approve the benefits clerk job description, second reading.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Can I get a motion on the job description, accounting technician, first reading?
I move that the school committee approve the accounting technician job description, first reading.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Sorry, I'm losing my voice as the day goes on. Can I get a motion on homeschooling?
I move that the school committee approve the Home 21-22-21 and 21-22-22.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Can I get a motion on the resignations?
I move that the school committee approve the following resignations. Sarah McVeigh, 4-hour teacher assistant, Forest Avenue School, effective 10/21/21. And Janet Cooper, District School Data Support Personnel B, retirement effective 12/24/21.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Can I get a motion on the substitute daily pay rate increase?
I move that the school committee increase the daily rate for substitute teachers from $90 a day to $95 a day for non-certified, and $105 a day for certified teachers, and increase the daily rate for school nurse teachers from $125 per day to $175 per day.
Second?
Any discussion?
Just a quick question. Under our budget, our new budget constraints, this is present a difficulty. I do approve, I think it's a good idea, we need substitutes.
Yeah, certainly that is in consideration. We're going to have to see if we can use some of these increases in our ESSA dollars to cover that. But as I acknowledge the difficulty we're having getting subs for our teachers and our nurses, in your sheet, you have what our neighboring communities are paying, and I tried to, in some cases, meet that or exceeded that. But it is certainly a budget issue, a budget concern.
No, I think what you have here is definitely will approve it, but it's like everything else, presents a problem.
The reality is we need subs. I mean, we've had issues at some of the schools that we have numerous teachers out in one day, and students are having to be mixed, and admin is having to step in and do supervision versus teaching. So we need to have an ability to attract subs so that we've got teachers in front of our students rather than our students missing a lot of educational time. So, I mean, people get sick. We're in the time of COVID, you know, flu season's coming up, and it happens. So we want to make sure that we're marketable and that we're making it attractive to bring subs in. So I think we do need to think about the budget as well, but we also need to make sure our kids are being provided the educational materials. So any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Can I get a motion on a change to Rhode Island General Law 16-7-40 housing aid bonus?
I make a motion that the school committee approve the resolution, which aligns with expiration of all 6 temporary housing aid bonuses and affords LEAs an additional year in planning and construction lost addressing COVID-19, along with the global supply chain shortage.
Second?
Any discussion?
So this was discussed with our town council. Our building committee suggested this. I did circulate this draft to other superintendents in the state, and already 5 other districts have approved this through their school committee, have approved this extension. And I talked to our Senator De Palma. He mentioned that he would attempt to put this early on in the legislative session so we would know if these extensions would go forward, and that would help us, the building committee, the school committee, and the town council make a decision with regard to our stage 2 plan.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Can I get a motion on appoint negotiation for teacher contract?
I make a motion the school committee appoint Attorney Benjamin Scungio as negotiator to commence bargaining on a successor agreement with NEAM.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Can I get a motion on appoint negotiator for teacher assistant contract?
I make a motion that the school committee appoint Attorney Benjamin Scungio as negotiator to commence bargaining on a successor agreement with Middletown Paraprofessional Association, NEARI/NEA.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Can I get a motion to table the budget adjustments to the next meeting?
I make a motion that the school committee tables the budget adjustments to next meeting.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. And the last item, there is no action needed, excuse me, there is no action needed on the corrective action plan. So we don't have to make a motion on that. Okay, next is the superintendent reports.
Thank you. As Michelle said, we have a very robust Beyond the Bell program, so you can look at the personnel actions, and it's pages long. For the record, though, I do need to read all of the hires. Hire effective October 22nd, Jennifer Odette, 4-hour TA at Gaudet Learning Academy. Hire effective October 25th, building-based sub Autumn Hoffman for Middletown High School. Lauren Nielsen, grade 4, long-term sub, Gaudet School. Hire effective November 1st, Lisa Harris, teacher assistant at Aquidneck School. Hire effective November 2nd, Tom Caparelli, technology innovation coach. Casey Wright, technology innovation coach. Hire effective November 3rd, Casey Amaral, 4-hour teacher assistant, Forest Avenue School. Hire effective November 10th, Kelly Butella, building-based teacher for Gaudet School. Hire effective November 16th, Kevin Zam, director of science, math, and PE. Christopher Richards, director of humanities. Luis Oliveira, director of unified arts. Now, these are all our teachers, and I want to thank them all for stepping up to support our students for Beyond the Bell program. Again, as Michelle said, they work a long day and a hard day, but they are putting in these extra hours to move our students forward and accelerate their learning. Mary Bogemont, Forest Avenue, these are all effective November 16th. Mary Bogemont, Forest Avenue School. Ruth Lynn Butler, Forest Avenue School. Lori Call, Forest Avenue School. Erin Dorley, Forest Avenue School. Megan Ford, Forest Avenue School. Jen Halabesco, Forest Avenue School. Caitlin Lentz, Forest Avenue School. Caitlin Miller, Forest Avenue School. Kristen Ramsey, Forest Avenue School. Christopher Robinson, Forest Avenue School. And Claire Noonan, Forest Avenue School. The following are Aquidneck School teachers: Josephine Brennan Corey, Ann Coogan, Mercedes Forrest, Dina Smith, Shannon Dugan, Dina Sylvia, Shannon Dugan, Tara Mello. Those are Aquidneck. Gaudet Learning Academy, Nicole Doucette, Brittany Clark, Abigail Williams, Lauren Nielsen, Jackie Giacona, Jen Calavaro. Gaudet Middle School, Carolyn Kaur, Kayla Vieira, Susan Lees, Paul Davis, Kerry Bryn Dennis, Stephanie Sims, Kristen Pacheco, Jane Violet, Angela Kelly, Rick Taylor, Angela Nunes, Joshua Began, Sophia Parati, Jackie Zam, Trina Bona, Kelly Sorrell Dujman, Kelly Butella, Kim Saputo, George Safer, Rita Concher, Julia Carlsberg, Lori Hanlon, Kathy Fesco Trefedden. Again, this is unprecedented, the number of teachers, so we're so thrilled. Same with the high school. Look at this list: Eric Wright, Jill Armstrong, Jerry Haas, John Kunick, Jamie Pulio, Andrew Lees, Kate Mangaro, Dave Fontaine, Louis Oliveira, Gail Sullivan McCune, and Michelle Smith. So I want to thank all of those teachers again. Hire effective November 17th, Kristen Moniz, Title I Reading Specialist, grades 6 through 8. Coaching, hires effective November 29th, Rebecca Dugan and April Stern, our varsity co-ed coach and assistant coach. Shannon Farrell, gymnastic. Raleigh Brennan, assistant boys basketball. And Mike Yates, head coach, girls basketball. Randy Butler, effective December 6th, boys 6th, 7th, and 8th grade basketball.
Normally, I don't need a microphone, but normally, I just want to say that, looking at this personnel list of our dedicated teachers is so impressive, and it says a lot about our school community and the hard work that our teachers are willing to put in, and the dedication and commitment to our students' success. So I thank all of them, and along with all the other teachers who are doing above and beyond the call of duty on a daily basis right now in our district. So it's greatly appreciated.
Next is curriculum. I'm going to pass that to Michelle.
Just quickly, a little bit more to build on the Beyond the Bell program. I just want to acknowledge the coordinators at every building. Jen Passari's at Forest Avenue, Brittany Nelson is at Aquidneck, and we have Lori Oliveira at GLA, and Casey Wright at Gaudet Middle, and Linda Leonard at the high school. I don't think this program would be where it is without the coordinators. They recruited teachers. They went out there and knocked on doors and said, we need to do this. So it was a wonderful idea to have the coordinators at each building, because I think it really has each coordinator working closely with their principals, and they own the programs at each building. So I want to thank the coordinators. Also want to thank the principals. I know the principals were involved in helping to recruit teachers as well, and then select students that would be attending. We did start this week. The busing has been a little bit bumpy. We're just sort of figuring out how to get everybody home, and that might take a little bit, but I think once we get rolling, a lot of our programs are going to run for a longer time than they have in the past. And I just want to give you a few ideas on some of the creativity that's out there around the program. We, of course, have the reading and the writing and the math kind of intervention programming, but we also have some social emotional pieces that are important. For instance, there's an art club at Forest Avenue School where each week students expand their social emotional learning through artistic expression. I think that's really sort of a key component to look at. There's also game clubs and book clubs. Game clubs that talk about taking turns and following directions. Book clubs where they work together to read through a book, and a lot like, adults enjoy conversation around books, so do kids. And so the book was presented ahead of time, and students signed up based on, that choice. And so we have book clubs existing. A lot of literacy boosts and math boost programs, and also at, all the elementaries. And then also just some really creative programming. Like, I know that couple of our PE teachers are doing some like intramural movement types of things where kids can stay after and sort of play sports and be together socially, and that helps too with that social emotional piece. So yes, we're addressing the academics, but we're also addressing that social emotional learning piece. And I know that at the high school, looking a lot at helping kids to meet the graduation requirements, and also credit recovery for students who haven't done well in a course, whether it was last year or this year. So really targeting students. So in your status report, there is a way you could click on the Beyond the Bell and get right into the big list. And we'll keep updating that as it goes along so that you can see how that's progressing. As you know, the state assessment results are a big part of today's discussion, as will be the ESSER 3 application, which is rolling out in the next month. So you'll be hearing a lot about that conversation around brainstorming what we're going to finally choose to put in there. Our ideas are plentiful.
I just think that it's amazing that those teachers are stepping up
Yes.
and doing this, and I think apart from the academics, it's just that building of a relationship too with those teachers who are in the classroom. It's great to have people from the outside come in, but that whole relationship building, you never know when somebody's going to become a mentor, or I just think that's huge. That's
And I
awesome.
know, I totally agree, and I think the middle school too, they sent me their goal of the program. They said their goal of their program is to ensure that students have the comfort and confidence with all material that's presented at the middle school level. So they also want kids to engage and feel comfortable in their learning. So I love all the ideas that have come out. And again, we are doing our best to involve as many students as we possibly can. I think transportation, we were able to get at least one bus at every school. So that also helps, just having that transport home. For many students, that was key. And I know for many of our homeless families, that was key as well. So we're going to keep expanding. But again, I think those coordinators are key to have at each building. And we couldn't do this without our staff. But our staff stepping up and staying after, and even some of them before school. So very grateful. I did put the totals of each enrollment for you. So Forest Avenue right now has about 60 students enrolled, and then Aquidneck has close to 50. And then if you look at Gaudet Learning Academy, they have about 40, and then Gaudet Middle about 60, and the high school is just enrolling, and they're going to start more next week, so I'll have a number from them. But on your attached document, it'll have the updates.
That's impressive. You know, Tammy, I want to expand on what you just said about the relationship with the teachers, and I think that it's unfortunate the council didn't stay for this, because I know we've had so much discussion about hiring somebody as I don't even know what the position they wanted to call it, but when we do it in-house like this, the students know the teachers, and that's going to be a real comfort for them. It's going to be a safe place because it's familiar to them. It's in their own environment. They're not having to go to a different building. They're able to be in their building, in their environment with their peers. And it's going to be a domino effect that some of the kids are going to say, hey, this is really cool. I did a game thing, or I did the PE activity, and that's going to expand as the sessions go on. So I really think that it's a key factor that we have to make it attractive for students. It can't be something that's going to be, oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I know we're seeking out the students that need the supports, but I still think it's going to be great for students to be interested in signing up. So it's going to be not pulling them in, but they're going to be wanting to come. So that whole comfort is going to be a big plus for this success of this program. And Michelle, thank you for coordinating this, because you're the one who's really at the top of this, and you've been passionate about it, and it shows, and it's really coming to fruition, and it's so exciting. I mean, so exciting.
Well, I mean, it could never happen without the principals and coordinators.
No, I know, but
They're really the.
you're an incredible team, you
Yeah.
guys. It's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Oh,
Finance?
Okay, so for the 2021 budget, we've moved now from, sorry. We've moved with the 2021 budget from the process of trying to get everything in for the year, purchase orders closed out and all of that, into the start of the audit preparation materials. So now that we're able to get to a trial balance point, we'll be preparing our audit materials and expect to see the auditors very shortly. So that will be a multi-month process, but we'll continue to keep you updated on the status of that. For fiscal 21-22, I think the latest financial reports right now, which you'll be receiving within the next few days, will show that we've got about $8.3 million expended year to date, another $21.3 million encumbered for the remainder of the year, with a projected balance of just over $8 million. It's very early still. There's a lot of encumbrance still to come when we talk about all of those out-of-district tuitions and all of that. So we keep updating those as we move through the year. We'll be updating transportation and those kinds of expenses as we move through as well. So we'll keep you up to date on that. I'd also like to give a shout out to the bus company, because when Michelle was looking for the Beyond the Bell buses within an hour after school, we didn't have any. And so it really took some work with the bus company to move things around to be able to free up some buses. The time might not be perfect, but at least we were able to squeeze those buses out. So they are working hard on it. Yes, there are little, problems along the way, but they are working hard to make that work, because they are part of our education system. So they want to be a good partner in making that work. On the food service front, right now, the program, despite the fact that the federal government is still providing the meals, we still have operational costs associated with food services. So we are in a good position at the moment. We are seeing a monthly net profit now, which is going into the program and helps to pay all of those other costs that have to go through the program. So everything's good on that front. I think one of the other things our transportation company is doing for us right now is transporting our meals from the prep kitchens to the elementary schools. And that's hugely helpful because they're doing that with time on an existing run. So it's not costing us extra. We haven't had to go out and buy a vehicle yet. That day is coming, but right now they've been very generous in helping us to accomplish that task. So once again, that's a tremendous help to the program. And on the HR side, it continues to be busy. All of these list of hires and people exiting is a lot of meeting with folks, a lot of orientation and exiting. And all of that goes through all of the systems at the district. So we have to keep track and make sure that everybody has the right notifications. And it also goes through the payroll process. So making sure we have everything together in time to get folks paid is another load on the staff. So again, we're managing as best we can to that, but it continues to be a very busy area. And I think that concludes my report unless you have any questions. Okay. Thank you.
Next is facilities, and I want to welcome Bob. Next is facilities. I want to welcome Bob Pacheco to our table. I know last month we introduced you, but now you get to give your first facilities report. So welcome to our table.
Fourth day on the job.
Fourth day, yeah.
Oh, that's right, you just started.
Well, good evening.
Well, thank you and welcome.
Madam Chair and the school committee. In the pack, you can see the list of projects that have been completed or are in the process of. I gave myself a goal this week, which was to reach out to the building principals and our vendors.
You gotta get a little
I'm
closer.
sorry.
Mike, I'm sorry. Pull up.
Yeah. Pull the cord, okay, there we go. You can hear me now, correct? So I gave myself the goal this week was to reach out to building principals, our vendors, a bus company, to get to know those folks, establish relationships early on, review all our current testing and make sure that we're in compliance, and we are. We're establishing those future inspections as well. And attended several meetings pertaining to the HVAC project. We're in good shape there. Status report has been was pretty good recently. We approved a few change orders there, so we're pretty good shape on that project with substantial completion by the end of the year. And just overall working and getting to know the facilities team. Building that team and getting familiar with daily operations. So it's just kind of a gathering of information.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And Michelle's going to wear an IT hat tonight.
Our director of technology needed to step out for another meeting, so just asked me to give you a little bit of an update on technology. I know that the team has been deploying new devices. Those would be computers for the biomedical and the CS4RI programs. They're also deploying new iPads at the elementary school level. And I know they are hard at work configuring a new engineering computer lab for the high school, and they expect it to get up and running in the next few weeks. In addition, he's been talking to us a lot about disaster recovery protocol. And in the IT world, that means just taking the security and well-being of their servers and their systems and their software very seriously. So he's on top of that disaster recovery and making sure that we have a plan for that. So I feel very safe with him doing that. In addition, he's been holding tech coach meetings, is doing this as a series and having the tech coaches and the IT team get together and it allows them to hear firsthand what the needs of the students and the teachers are. They kind of have an informal social time together, which I think is great. And they're going to meet monthly with their elementary, middle, and high school coaches in separate teams to focus on schools' unique issues, needs, and concerns. And of course, the help desk has been busy. They've had over 169 help desk requests, so they process those as quickly as they can. But they're hard at work. I live next door, so I know. They're very busy. Thank you.
That concludes my reports.
Can I get a motion to receive superintendent reports?
I move that the school committee receive the superintendent's reports.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, this, reports of officers and committees. Does anybody have anything to report tonight?
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
We had our state school board
You gotta use the mic.
workshop Tuesday night, and we had a presentation from RIDE on the SIT teams at each, for the schools for RIDE. And we're going to follow this up with getting some SIT teams from Massachusetts to come and talk to us. All of our meetings are now videotaped, and they're on our website. So if you can't make a meeting, it's there. So you just have to go onto our website. We're also doing educational roundtables. We're taking different topics, and there's groups of people throughout the state, chairs, and we are going to tackle like superintendent evaluation that our board and chairs want, communications from crisis management, and how to deal with difficult people. We also are going to set up so that we are all able to talk to the General Assembly, RIDE, and the Department of Health on a monthly basis. Policies is another educational roundtable group. Advocacy to make real changes at the local and state and national levels. And again, to talk to the General Assembly and how to inform and interact with them. Just like with the resolutions, or, just talk to them about our concerns before they start in January, with the different bills and laws that they pass for education. And so that would be it for now.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad they're recording the meetings because
Yeah,
I have a bad cold this week, so I wasn't going to go in person to the meeting on
Right.
Tuesday night. I should have been there, but I obviously
Yeah.
couldn't go in person. So it will be nice to be able to watch that.
all of our meetings
I
have
think that's a
been
good thing
taped and put in
in,
there.
in today's world with
Yes.
COVID and cold and flu. So, okay, does anybody else have anything? All right, Mr. Arnold, you can make that motion.
I move to adjourn from school committee meeting at 6:15.
Ooh, that's early. Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody, and happy Thanksgiving.